Hello, everyone. This is Ashish. Welcome back to our podcast. And today is a special day. The book is finally being released today, at least on the day it is being recorded. I'm planning to do a live one as well, and it will be done by the time this video or podcast comes out. It feels really good. Like the 5 years of work finally in my hands feels good. And I've been through stages where I almost don't like doing it. Like, I don't like working on this book because I have redrafted it 12 times. And since the sixth time, I was saying this is the last one. And then there's a seven draft, and then there's an eight draft, and then there's a 12 draft when the book is getting published. And now, of course, the final version, you have to go through it again. And at that stage, also, you're finding errors and you're working at it. It's a extremely patience inclusive process writing a book, and I would imagine that is the way any other creative aspect of any other creative activity works, I would say, other than painting, I would say. But also, like, I would say painters would be again and again giving the final touch, oh, this is not perfect. And then I'm sure that movie producers must be going through this, that, oh, there's some loophole over here. Like, I'm pretty sure that all the loopholes that you found in movies, the directors and the producers probably found it first because they're the people who have gone through it a dozen times. And there were few loopholes in this story as well, the boy who did not sign. And like the last draft that I did, I think it was the 12th one, and I did kind of eliminate it. And even after that, there was like one, it's kind of a loophole, but there's an explanation that I can give anyway, so it's fine, let it go out. So now we're like very minor one. I bet that less than 1% of people are going to find out about it. But anyways, I want to talk about that particular patience aspect. I do not want to talk completely about the book because I already did the live version that came out on 15th August, which is also, if you do not know, the release date of the book, which is also, if you do not know, the Independence Day of the country, which you did know if you were Indian at least, but also which you do not know, most likely, is the birthday of Indian Space Research Organization. And that is why it was extremely important for me to release this book on that particular day. I mean, the book could have been released a month ago as well, but that particular day is important. When it goes down in the history books, 15th August should be the release day of the boy who did not sign. All right, anyways, don't want to talk more about the book, but I want to talk about this patience aspect, and that maybe I will be able to talk about my journey of becoming a writer and how it tested my patience to the point that I wanted to quit a lot of times, but also it's always like a mental tussle that you go through. I would also like to talk about like the patience aspect that was tested of mine during the preparation to become a scientist at Indian Space Research Organization. The same thing was tested again and again to run my own podcast and to literally anything that I'm proud of that I was able to do. And this is one aspect which is kind of dying with the immediate results that we are having in our society today. I mean, look at the social media influencers and the celebrities that you see around you. They all got hit and famous because of that one thing that they did. Like, look at Kim Kardashian. I don't even want to get into what made her famous, but if you know, that was just one thing that made her famous. And even to a huge extent, you can look at all the different things that we are crediting these days. Like, what is your value until unless there are 1,000 people liking it and praising it on social media? Even to the lowest scale, if you get a job, amazing job, let us say you got a job on Google, in Google, and You're not happy until unless you post it on LinkedIn or Instagram, and there are like hundreds of people saying, "Oh, you did great." And those are like just instant rewards. So people are just going towards that final instant gratification rather than it used to be a time where like people literally had to go to war, fight for like 3 to 4 years, come back, and they have established their name in the society. Or you had to build a company, live for years without any appreciation, and then you have built something and that had some value. And nowadays, why would someone go and be in the shadows, under the tunnels, write a book for 5 years when I could get much more appreciation, money, and value in all the aspects just by making YouTube videos? But I think the longer it takes for you to achieve something, the longer it lasts. That value is going to last. And that is something which is again a vision that people are losing over time. That, okay, you got it instantly, but it vanishes instantly as well. Why do you think so many celebrities keep on doing crazier and crazier stuff? Because whatever crazy they did, it loses its essence as quickly as got its essence. So there are few things which requires patience, persistence, and consistency, which will be much more long lasting. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. And what are the actual input that you have to do while you are at it. So let's get into the whole writing process. I'm going to get into my preparation for ISRO as well, and same goes with establishing a podcast without ever trying to make a clickbait, without ever trying to get instant views. And because of that, I've established an audience which is ready to join me in my seminars all across the country, which is kind of commendable if you look at the views that I get. It's like barely reaching 10,000. But when I'm doing seminars all across India, there are always people ready to join in person. That's something physical that I created, and that's only because of the value that I add. And these things takes time, right? But sooner or later, it's going to happen. Okay, now what do I mean by building something consistently for a long time? And let's take an example of developing my speaking skills. Now, I say these things because, like I said, I've seen this happening in my life over and over again. Now, when it comes to speaking skills, I grew up in a city of Ranchi in Jharkhand. My mother tongue is Hindi, but I was plunged into an education system highly biased towards English. I was already looking at a job scenario where English is the professional language that everybody is speaking. I knew very quickly that if I want to develop a good career, I have to become good at spoken English. On top of my background, on top of the small city that I come from, I was an introvert. And as an introvert, not only English, I wouldn't talk much in Hindi either. So, in general, my tongue and throat is not used as much. Kind of the reason why I turned out to become a writer is because I was an introvert and I would rather prefer to be lost in my philosophies and my ideas, think about things rather than just socialize more, which has a value, obviously, and I talk about it all the time. But also, being an introvert, improving communication skills have been tough. But I used the same philosophy that I used over and over again. And before getting into communication skills and improving my communication skills, I was first introduced to it through martial arts. If you do not know, I got into martial arts at the age of 8. And at the age of 8, I decided to join a karate class. That was the only option I had, the only way I saw which would help me defend myself against bullies because, other than being an introvert, I also grew up extremely skinny. And right now I'm above 6 feet tall, but growing up, there were taller boys, and my height did not pick up until I think the age of 16. So, being a smaller guy, skinnier guy, has its problems. You're going to get beat up sooner or later, and especially if you're not that good in academics as well. So, I chose martial arts, and that was not the day and age where you could get famous on TikTok, thankfully. And that was the day and age where people used to respect consistent effort towards something. People used to respect skill building. And I'm telling you, that's being lost every day. But the bright side is that if lesser and lesser people are focusing towards long term skill building and consistent effort, the ones who are going to do it anyways are going to be valuable. Whatever is rare is gold. And thus, if you rarely amongst all the other choose to invest time towards developing some skills for not days, not months, but years, then you are going to be rare as gold. And that's what I'm talking about over here. At that time, I was directly plunged into it because it was necessity. I had nothing else to do, and it was basically uh, deciding my survival. So I chose martial arts from the age of 8, and I continued doing that till the age of 11. That's when I got beat up in a tournament, and I was a kid, got scared, left martial arts, walked away. But you see, when you give up on developing a skill, that does not change its requirement. So I changed my school, not because I got beat up, but naturally my parents decided to move to a new place, and I joined a new school at the age of 6. At the age, what, how age? I was, I think, I don't know. At some age when I was in standard 6. Do the math because I'm not interested in doing the math right now. I was the age of 16 at 10th standard. So do the whole subtraction thing. But in 6th standard, I joined a new school. And new schools comes with new challenges, obviously, because people don't know you and you're still skinny, you're still weak, both physically and academically. And I started to get bullied over there in a new place, completely new school. So I found out that, hey, I need some strong boys to be my friends who are going to protect me from getting beat up. So that's the first reflex, right? You always look for a solution externally. So I saw some bigger guys, and I started to like do things that would just please them, right? Praise them. That's what human beings do naturally. And I still remember when I got to seventh class, there was this guy. Obviously, I'm not going to take his name, but he did not look like he should be in seventh class at all. He looked like he should be at least in standard 10th. He was big, and he was like, even at that time, he was going to gym, which was like not that much popular at that time. But not only was he big, he was obsessed about becoming muscular and strong, right? And he was a straight up bully, and he used to sit right behind me. Like, this is a bench and that is his bench, and I was just used to getting getting hit all day by this dude who is twice my size, who is just practicing his gym routine and strength building on me. So initially, what people generally do is that they try to keep bullies happy so that you get up lesser, you get beat up lesser. And other than, what you can do is that find other strong people. But then again, it's not that another strong guy is going to fight the guy who is bullying you for no reason. I mean, they gotta stick together as well. So I took this for a year or two, and that's when I realized that if I want a solution, I should not be looking outside but inside. That's when I started to realize that any skill can be developed, including self defense. And that's when I started to research. And when I was in standard 8, that was 2007 2008 time, and that's when internet was just popping up. and we did not have access to computers at our place, but we did have internet cafes in India. And I started to do little bit of research, and since I already had like a 3-year background in martial arts, I started to look into like taekwondo moves, karate moves, and what I would do is that I would lock myself in a room at my home, and I would just rehearse those moves any way possible, because my parents would not be sending me to a karate class because 10th board is coming, and 10th board is coming 2 years ago. That's how serious Indian parents are regarding academics. So they all said that once you give the 10th board, we are going to consider sending you to a martial arts class. And that's okay, that's fine. Apart from that, martial arts class would be costing money. I come from below middle class or middle class family. So 300 rupees is a lot for a month, every month. All right. So what I did is that I started to spend time alone, and it was horribly difficult, man, because I still remember. I'm just going to share one video of me doing a spinning back kick. Now, it might look easy to you, but I don't remember how many times I have fallen on my ass trying to do this spinning back kick when I was in class 8. Now, let's just get down to the numbers. I was 14 years old or so, 13 to 14 years old. I don't remember how many times I fell on my ass. And because I was trying to train on my own, I started to hurt few parts of my body because I was not having the proper technique. Because if you do not know, if you have to throw a round kick, the first thing that you do is lift your knee, then turn your hips, and then throw a round kick. I did not know about the turning your hips part, and then I started to strain this part of your of my what do you call it? I don't know what you call it, but it is basically the connection of your hip bones to your upper thigh. Obviously, I'm not a bio major, so don't know the obvious, appropriate terms. All right, so that's what I started to do, and I did it for 2 years. Now, who is appreciating me locking myself in a room for 1 hour every day trying to rehearse martial art moves? Nobody, right? But I did it out of necessity, and I also did it because even though nobody else saw this, I saw myself growing. I still remained very poor academically, did not perform very well in any of my examinations, still was always on the border of failing a subject or two, or sometimes I even failed a subject. But when I gave 10th board, and that time it was the last year in which 10th board was a thing, that too with the change system of CGPA, I told my parents like I want to join this karate class, and I did. And the karate class was also not that close, right? So I had to travel at least like half an hour towards that class, half an hour back of that class. And I was also in IIT coaching that I recently joined. The year was 2010, and you all know how my IIT preparation went. But I used to go to a karate class 6 o'clock in the morning, and it used to end somewhere around 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock to 9:15, I would walk to my IIT coaching. Thankfully, the coaching and my karate class was close by. And then I would be like just enervated. There's no energy left in me. And I would be sitting in that class where professors are teaching like calculus, which is at a level high enough to be asked questions from an IIT JEE examination. So you understand what I'm talking about. And I had no energy, and also not I did not have much interest in cracking that IIT JEE examination as well. But what was important to me at that time was that I would be able to defend myself. And I also remember that when I joined IIT JEE coaching, there was another set of bullies in my coaching as well. That's what I've seen all my life, that there are bigger guys picking on me. It's as simple as that. And by that time, when I was in 11th standard, I even remember like, hey man, you're gonna have problems with me, we're gonna fight. And that's as simple as that. And I've had some fights even outside the coaching institute because these people would not just stop picking on me. And there was another guy who just use slangs, and that was also another thing that I was terrified of growing up, that you can't disrespect my mother or my father, man. And there are bigger guys who would do that, and you're smaller, what are you going to do? So those are the things that motivated me that I'm going to fight. And I still remember there's in IIT coaching, there was this guy who's again muscular, lifted weights and stuff, and he just disrespected my mother. All right, there's a slang that Americans use, motherfucker, all the time. It doesn't mean shit to Americans, but it means a whole lot to Indians, and it meant a lot to me. And there was a Hindi version of that he used, and I held his neck and slammed my knees straight into his solar plexus, and that's where he fell down. And that's when I started to realize that it took me 4 to 5 years to get to this point where I could stand up for myself. And I think that was the beginning of me understanding that real skills takes years of unappreciated effort. And I think that was in a very subconscious level that I was learning. At that time, physical strength or self defense was my priority. And later on, right after my 12th board, when I was 18, when I got into a college, I understood that now academic strength is the necessity, and I need to start working towards that. I did not even think about it this way, that any skill requires years and years of unappreciated effort for you to excel at anything. But I think subconsciously that's what I kept on doing, because when I started studying, so right now I'm good at martial arts, right? I have like years and years of martial arts under my belt. And at that time, I was already like a brown belt, right? Either purple, white, or brown belt. I was still not a black belt at the age of 18. And I continued on doing my martial arts because I wanted a black belt. I took 1 or 2 years more for me to get a black belt. But at that time, my requirement was that I need to excel in academics. And now looking back in retro perspective, that this is the same philosophy that I used over there. So when I started studying, since I had no experience, just to refresh your memory, in 12th board, I had 65 percentage of marks in physics, chemistry, and mathematics. I had 53 marks in mathematics and 61 marks in physics. And you know, in 12th board, it takes literally nothing to get that much marks. Like, just study 1 day or 2 days before the board's examination. At least if you do that, you're gonna get that much. And that's all I did. But in college, when I understood that I have to develop a skill in engineering and I have to excel in academics, I started to realize few things, that it's kind of impossible for me to score good marks in academics. And that's happened when I started giving the midterms. So, generally there's a midterm and there's a finals, right? So when I gave the first midterms, that was 2 months into my first semester, those 2 months I already was struggling extremely hard. So I got into my college in June 2012, and from that to August 2012, I studied very hard, because I understood initially itself that if I am going to have a good professional life, if I'm going to have a career, I need to start studying. And I started working hard. So I kept working hard for 2 months. And the first midterm, I scored horribly. Like, it was below average performance. Even people who did not study anything performed better than me, because they had like 18 years of experience of excelling in academics, right? And I did not know or pay attention towards all these things. But one thing that I remember is that I just need to keep on going, because what I performed in my high school was still worse than what I'm getting in the midterm. And I think subconsciously I applied the same concept, that hey, listen, I used to be very weak physically as well once, and then it took me 6 years to reach to that point where I'm confident about my physique and I'm confident about defending myself. So this is nothing, this is just 2 months, right? So I need to just keep on going. And then I gave finals, and out of 6 subjects, I topped all the 6 subjects. That's it. It's as simple as that. Most people give up at that midterms point, that midterm where they worked very hard, did not see the results, let's quit. I'm not just good enough. This is not my cup of tea. That's what most people are going to say. And that's what I did not do. And I think the reason behind that was martial arts. And what I want you to understand is that martial arts or any kind of physical activity or sports does a great job of explaining these concepts to you physically, because we at the end of the day understand struggle and achievements or triumph physically the best. Like, you understand a country won a war because it was a physical struggle. You don't understand Cold War well, right? But you all understand World War II well. You understand that there was a fight, there were people dying. This was a physical struggle. And in a similar manner, kind of the reason why you appreciate sportsmen so much, you appreciate physical activities, physical victories so much, especially like fighting activities like wrestling, boxing, these things you understand because you're literally seeing people fighting for what they want. And we do that every day in everything that we choose to do, across the day, across the months, across the years, across your life. But that is very intangible. You don't pay attention towards that as much, but that's happening. But those people who come from that physical activity background, they apply the same concept on the mental aspect as well, and that's when they excel at both. And the best part about these things is that physical and mental aspects are very much interrelated. So if what I'm trying to say is that if you're physically very fit, your mind will be able to give higher output, which is going to ultimately get you more resources, because in today's day and age we don't live in a world where physical strength is the highest value. The highest value would be your mental strengths, right? And that's actually fair for a lot of reasons. That is why today women can compete with men in today's world, because ultimately the mental skills are more valuable. So mental skills are ultimately going to get you more resources, which comes with sometimes time, sometimes money. For example, if you have accumulated a lot of money, you have basically accumulated a lot of time, and that time can be invested towards growing much, just like you would invest money to get more money, right? If you invest money to a right place, you will multiply that money in years to come. In a similar manner, if you invest your time towards something, that will ultimately give you more time. Maybe I'll touch upon this concept some other day. But getting back to that consistent effort for a long period of time, this is something that people in general do not understand, because if someone gives a pat on your back, then you're like, oh, I'm doing good. If someone says that you're not doing good, and you're like, now you're doubting yourself, right? So that's what you need to understand, that you should not have external sources, or you should not need external sources to tell you anything. And this whole idea came from one of the guys who joined my Delhi seminar just 2 days ago. He did not ask this question all across the seminar, otherwise it would be recorded. He asked me after the seminar, and what he said is that he's right now working in corporate sector. And what he said is that, see, this is the world where networking is very important, contacts is very important. But unfortunately, my boss is my senior, so he just started his corporate life, I think, a year ago. So he's obviously at the bottom of the food chain, right? So he says that to socialize more, I'll have to invest a lot more time with others. And a lot of times that also comes with going out drinking, joining for parties, and to a huge extent, a lot of times it also ends up with like doing drugs. And that's the reality. And especially you'll see this happening so much in the entertainment industry, like actors, models, musicians. Their whole industry is all about contacts, right? You do not see models giving like competitive examinations to become a model, or actors getting a role because of some exam, or Yeah, there is an audition, but we all know how that works. So it's all about networking and communication, and that's why a lot of times these industries are so dark and corrupt in a lot of places. If you see that in a lower or a dimmer light happening in the corporate world, what the guy is saying, that I have to socialize, and you're talking about cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Gurgaon, and all. You have to go out for parties on the weekends. Then okay, you just joined a job, right? You're at the bottom of the food chain over here, but where are you going from here? Now your boss might be doing good or better than you, but if you keep on licking the ass of your boss or your seniors, one thing is for sure, you're not going to do better than him or her when you get to his or her age, right? You're always going to be lower in a lower food chain. What you can do is maybe look inside. So what I saw him go through was exactly what I saw myself go through when I was like 13 or 14 years old. I told you, right? I looked for bigger guys and praised them and laughed on their jokes so that they protect me, right? So what I'm doing is that I'm looking for a solution externally, or basically what I'm doing is looking for someone else who can solve my problem. What I did 2 years later from that stage was that I started to look internally, because ultimately what you're going to find, the solution to any of your problem, if it is going to be permanent, has to come from within. You have to be the solution, or it is a very temporary solution and you're always going to be dependent on someone else. So I'm not saying that don't socialize. I'm not saying don't network, but if that socializing and networking comes with a cost in which you are losing your own growth, then what growth are we talking about? You're getting some growth and then you're sacrificing some growth. So ultimately, you're not getting anywhere. Am I correct? So if you want to grow in a permanent manner in which you are having a permanent solution which you're going to have for the rest of your life and you're going to continue on building on it, then you have to be the solution and you have to look within you. So what I told to that guy is very simple. See, if someone is valuing you only because you're laughing at their jokes and you're praising them and you're socializing with them, doing what they say, then that's one way of networking. That's one way of being close to people. That's one way of being appreciated by people more powerful and having more social status than you. The other way would be you build your own status. You build your own skills, and whatever skill you could build, which is rare, is going to be in demand, and then people are going to come to you. I'm not talking about arrogance, I'm not talking about ego. If I want to talk to someone, I'm going to talk to that person. I'm going to reach out, but I'm not going to do stuff which I don't want to do just for the sake of making more connections or increasing my social status. That's not what I'm going to do. And in a similar manner, that person who is just 1 year into corporate society, I would say that, okay, people don't talk to you if you don't socialize. And if you don't want to socialize, don't socialize. Invest that time into building a skill that others don't have, and then look at all the people who earlier abandoned you coming to you. That is going to happen. That's how the world works. That's one of the very few truths that I've learned. And it's again saying it's not about ego, it's not about grandiosity, it's just not doing what you don't want to do. As simple as that. You like to party, go party as much as you want, but you should not be going out and drinking if you don't want to, just for the sake of socializing, man. Of course, that those are the moments where people start selling their individuality. Don't do that, because once you sold yourself, what do you have left? What do you have remaining within you? What are you going to do for the rest of your life without you yourself? You understand, people start to become puppets and machines very soon because of all this, because now they're just doing things to impress others instead of thinking about being impressive. What do you call it? Being impressible? No, being valuable, or being impressive. Sorry about that. Being impressive yourself, right? All right, wrote 90,000 words. Sometimes still I'm at a loss of words. Okay, so I guess that we have kind of concluded that whole idea. So yeah, look within, look towards skill developing. Networking is important. All the people who are in professional world, I always tell them the same thing. Have a good LinkedIn profile, talk to people, like go out on coffees with people, socialize. That's all good. I do all those things as well. But don't do anything you don't want to do. If someone is forcing you, rather look inside of you and invest in building skills, become more valuable, so that they all who are abandoning and ignoring you right now come towards you and reach out towards you, and that's going to happen. And if it is not happening, you have not done enough. Spend more time, be patient. Simple as that, right? All right, so we have a guy, Vivek Ramaswamy, who is making a lot of buzz for all the good reasons. He's very accomplished, but the fun fact is, 6 months ago, nobody knew who he is. But now, people are going to talk about him, including me, because that's how internet works. But what I want to talk about is not him being a presidential candidate, not him being so skilled and well accomplished, not him being a fantastic entrepreneur. What we are going to talk about is him being a fantastic speaker, because that's what we do. All right, now I chose particularly Patrick Bet David's uh, podcast or interview of him. So let's get at it and understand what makes him a fantastic speaker. And the reason this is a segment of Art Podcast is because I used to be a coach at what we call Art of Speaking. I still am, but it's mostly a recorded format now. But earlier we used to do Art of Speaking in a live fashion. We used to coach and train a lot of people, from students to working professionals, to get better at speaking skills or communication skills in the language of English. So let's pay attention towards his way of speaking. And the way I always do it is break it down into small pieces, understandable ones, in the most logical fashion, which makes sense to you, right? And when it makes sense to you, you understand what great he's doing with his tongue, that makes you want to listen to him, and you want to replicate that, or at least add that in your way of speaking as well, because none of us live without speaking, until unless you have a medical condition. So until unless you have that, well, you are going to speak, and especially in the professional world, you are going to use that on a daily basis. And that's how we rise in this world as well. We communicate. That's common in all the human beings. Even those who do not have their tongue functioning well, they also communicate. Without that, you're not going to live in this world for long, or you're going to live in the jungles or the Himalayas. All right. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get into it. A few things. First thing called the Great Reset. So again, it's very obvious what he's doing over here. Maybe not to you, but to me, because I've said this so many times, and this is something that you're going to see in all great speakers, that he's putting a lot of energy in speaking. Now, obviously, I can speak with a very low energy, and I can say exactly the same thing that I want to say, but you would not listen. Like, some of you will listen. Like 20% of you would listen no matter how I speak, but that does not make me a good speaker. I might have a lot of value, and that might increase 20% to 30%, maybe 40%, but 60% of the audience requires you to show some energy. Understand that the speakers always dictate the energy. Speaker is kind of putting energy in the audience. And you know why audience need energy? So that they don't fall asleep. You have to put energy for them to, first of all, understand that you're serious about whatever you're talking. And second of all, if you do not speak with energy, half of them are going to miss half of what you're trying to say. Because in a real life scenario, as you can see over here also, there's an audience. In a real life scenario, there's going to be people sitting over there and listening physically, without a replay or a fast forward or a rewind button, right? So you have to put that much energy continuously. That's the job of a speaker. I spoke at Delhi seminar for 4 hours. I wasn't able to speak 4 hours after the seminar ended, because my throat was blown out. That's how much energy I put in every seminar, every public speaking event that I do. You have to do that. That's basically what the speaker is getting paid for. That's why people are listening to a speaker. You have to put energy continuously. To a smaller scale, you can apply it to your interviews. to your interviews, because interviewers are your audience at that point, or the debates that you maybe participate in, any speech you are going to give, even in a day-to-day basis interaction. Speak loudly, speak with energy. In that way, you're kind of reducing the communication gap, because communication gap is going to be there no matter what. There's always an efficiency gap between what is going on in your head and what you are saying, because 100% conversion of your thoughts is not possible into your words. That's just how things work in a real life scenario. Nothing is 100% efficient. Then those words are going to hit into the ears of the person who is listening to you, and then that can never be 100% converted into his or her thoughts. So there's again an efficiency gap. So this is an efficiency gap that we can't do anything about. However, you can reduce that if you kind of increase the energy, the continuity of your way of speaking, using lesser connectors. Obviously, there is something that he's displaying continuously. And basically, if you want to express an idea or your thought, you have to put good amount of energy, be just for 5 minutes. If you're going to speak with energy. Other than that, you can see the same things in Patrick Bet-David himself. If you go to my breakdown of Patrick's way of speaking, you're going to see me talking about the same thing. I've broken down Jordan Peterson as well. I've broken down, and not like physically broken down, Jordan Peterson, his way of speaking, Sashi Tharoor, Joe Rogan, Andrew Tate. You're going to see this amongst everybody. You're not going to ever see a chilled out speaker who people are listening to. That does not happen. That might happen if you are like Albert Einstein or Stephen Hawkins, or like you are so golden that people are going to listen to you no matter what. And same works with Elon Musk. Like, at least it worked for Elon Musk for a long time when he was a terrible speaker. Now you see he has stepped up his game at speaking as well, because you have to. Everybody understands that value. All right, that was a very minor thing that you can see in Vivek's way of speaking. Other than that, let's point out the second thing I want to show over here.
Great reset. It's a different vision of how we're all supposed to live.
You see how he uses pause so beautifully? He's just comfortable with silence. So many people are terrified of silence. They cannot stay quiet for a second because they think that if I speak continuously, I'm speaking very well. But silence is such an important tool. Number one, it gives you a gap in which you can think. Number two, it gives the audience a gap where they can grasp and understand what you just said. And number three, you are not filling it up with a connector. The worst thing that you can do is say something and be uncomfortable about the gap and put a because that's number one, annoying, right? Continuously, if a person is saying connector, okay, this is not a good way of speaking. It shows that you are an immature speaker, and also it shows that you are underconfident. A confident person is okay with the gaps and the pauses, fine. But an underconfident person is continuously going to put all those connectors in between the gaps. And you see this in the metropolitan cities a lot, where people have just somehow decided that the common day-to-day language is English. And that's weird, right? Like, if you go in Delhi, it's weird that you go to mall and the shopkeeper is talking to you in English. But that happens. The worst thing is that if you don't talk in English, they kind of undermine you, and they think that I mean, there's a superiority complex in India that has always been there, right? A person who can speak fantastic English is always respected more, for reasons I'm not ready to discuss over here. But you're going to see this in Delhi and Mumbai all the time. But they are all going to speak in English, but they are all also going to speak in, I understand, okay. And they're going to continuously use connectors. And that's not a mature way of speaking. Any good speaker you're ever going to listen to are going to use the connectors as less as possible. Like, especially at least in the impromptu situations, unscripted talks, connectors are impossible to be eliminated 100% of time. And I can say this, that is impossible, because I've literally broken down the best speakers on this planet, like starting from Barack Obama to Sashi Tharoor, to you can like understand what I'm talking about. And they are all sometimes or the other going to use connectors if if they are in an impromptu, unscripted, unrehearsed kind of speaking. But you have to minimize it as much as possible, and that's what Vivek is doing a tremendously good job at. I've not listened to it too much, but so far zero connectors. So let's listen to him more. What we have learned so far is that have good energy. Number two, don't be afraid of gaps. Gaps are a very essential tool for a good speaker. And let's look at what else can we learn.
Says that we have to dissolve the boundaries between the public sector and the private sector, between governments and companies, between nations, to be able to now work towards what they call the global common good.
God damn, man. Look at how he's using pauses, man. I cannot get over it. And there's another thing that he did that I'm going to soon discuss.
In the private sector, between governments and companies, between nations, to be able to now work towards what they call the global common good.
You see how he's using pauses? Now, these pauses are different from those pauses that you use because you just don't know what to say next, right? These pauses are planned pauses. These pauses are at the end of the sentences. If you pay attention towards all of these pauses, these are not pauses when you're actually thinking what you're going to say next or you're in loss for words. These are planned pauses. And that's important because in a real life situation, when you're speaking on the top of your lungs, what happens is that you are exhausted and you don't get that much time to have complete breathing. And these gaps are very important for you to beat that physical aspect of speaking. Speaking itself is a very energy involving process, if you do not know that. And that is why people who are preparing for professional interviews, like for example long length interviews like BARC interview, ISRO interview, these interviews, you have to be ready for that stamina part of speaking. Speaking does involve a good amount of stamina. And that is why to my students, I always say that you should be speaking for 20 minutes at least every day. And most of them, when they start working towards speaking for 20 minutes, they're exhausted in 5 minutes. It's difficult. Obviously, it is difficult. And if you will be good enough to speak for 20 minutes in your room when you're alone, then you will be able to speak on stage for 5 minutes. That's it. Same works with boxing, man. You can hit the bag for 30 minutes in a real life fight, in a real fight in a ring, in a tournament. If that's 20 minutes in the bag, then that's 5 minutes in the ring. Simple. So if you want to enhance your stamina in speaking, start doing it from today itself, because that's a very important aspect. Now he's taking it to the next level. He just left the stool over there and stood up, and I'm eager to see what he's going to do next.
I'm against this. I am a citizen not of some global citizen. I am a citizen of this nation, the United States of America. I'm proud of that. That is true.
Now why did he stood up? You have to think about it, right? Because he's smart, right? He's not playing it emotionally over here. Understand what I once heard in Peaky Blinders, but this is like a very old saying, that conviction induces emotion, which is an enemy of auditory. So any good speaker is not emotional. Although in a very rare situation you would see Hitler being excessively emotional, right? And I have no doubt that he was not playing it. He's like really emotional. He's not like, I secretly love Jews, but I'm just going to say the Jews are the enemy so that I can control a country. I don't think that's the case. So sometimes emotion would be something behind which everybody would be riding. Like an emotional speaker can actually rile up a crowd. But most of the times, if you're too emotional, it is very difficult to have a structure, to have a plan, to have all the points covered. So I do not think that a politician like him would be going emotional. So when he's speaking over here, he's continuously thinking. And at that point, he thought that I'm going to get up. But why is that? Because obviously, when you stood up, you can now use the stage better. And in that, a speaker who is stuck in a particular place as a stone, compared to a speaker who is covering the entire stage, which one do you think seems more confident? Obviously, right? A speaker who's not afraid to just roam around and talk to the audience. A speaker who's not afraid of just walking wherever he or she wants to. And you would say, what does that make? How does that make a difference? Who would you rather listen to? A more confident person or a less confident person? Who do you think is having more conviction? And a person who is more confident is obviously someone I should listen to, because he's this confident for a reason. Maybe he has his ideas sorted out. Maybe he's more knowledgeable. Maybe he's more experienced. And this happens all the time, even at the lower level at the interviews. If you look more confident, doesn't matter if you are or you're not, doesn't matter if you're more experienced or you're not, the interviewers are going to see that as you are more skilled. And that's not true, but it's going to happen all the time. Why? Because we are all humans. We all judge the book by its cover. Happens all the time. All right. So he stood up, and on top of that, look at his hand gestures, right? An underconfident person is going to not use the hands as much. And some people even ask me sometimes that how to improve hand gestures. You don't work upon that. Do you think that he ever took classes on improving hand gestures? I bet he did not. Because hand gestures comes naturally, right? I'm not right now thinking that I should move my hands like this. If you are comfortable, if you're confident, hand gestures are going to come automatically. It's a very important tool. Extremely important. Because a high percentage, I'm not going to pick up number like 30%, a high percentage of speaking is visual. That is why you do not get that much emotions if you're just listening to this podcast in an audio fashion. If you just listen to him versus you look at him speaking, there's a whole different story going on, because a high percentage of speaking is or listening is visual. So he's using all his tools. Like, if I'm given an option to influence a crowd, would I be doing it sitting down or standing up? 100% of the time, I'll take a chance to stand up if I can, because there I'm using my hands better. I'm not limited, but also I'm using my entire body. I'm taking myself closer to the audience, right? So that's, I think, what he's doing. And you think about it yourself with a logical fashion. And let's move forward.
It had to be a small group of elites in the back of palace halls in Old England.
As of today, I believe you're 37 years old. You're going to be 38 on Wednesday, I believe. Right?
Yeah, you know better than I know.
See, this is what I want to show over here. That Vivek over here is not having a very masculine, strong voice, right? If you just talk about voice, it's not a very deep voice. I just played that clip so that you can compare his voice with Patrick's voice. And what you're going to see is that Patrick's voice is very deep, very masculine, a loud voice, right? So what I'm saying is that you don't really need a perfect voice as well. You don't need a perfect gift, because that's a person's physical attribute, right? You can't really control that. Well, obviously, there's some ways you can enhance that, but you don't need that. If you're putting in the energy, if you're having the fluency that he has, if you're using the pause, it all comes with practice. How do you improve fluency? How do we eliminate connectors? We do that by rehearsing again and again and again on a daily basis. I tell my students to just do the recording thing and the speaking in front of mirror thing for 20 minutes. And most people are not even able to do that. And I did that for at least an hour for 6 years to reach to a point of making YouTube videos that you see in 2018. So it requires a lot of effort, a lot of consistency, something that we talked about in the earlier stages of this podcast. It requires a lot of unappreciated effort. But look what you can accomplish if you do that for years and years. and you do that without looking for any reward. Persistence, patience, very important, isn't it? Now, I've made few videos on improving your communication skills. I'll be linking them down in the description box just in case you're listening to me for the first time talking about enhancing your communication skills. And apart from that, I run a course called Art of Speaking, which is a complete 1 month course which is covering everything. So I'll link that in the description box as well. And I guess this is all that I wanted to discuss in today's podcast. Thank you for listening. And my book is out now. It's available on Amazon and Flipkart. You can just go ahead and order it. To few platforms, it might take few days to be over there, but it will be available in all the countries and all the platforms, both ebook and paperback. That is for sure. So that's about it. Thank you guys for the support. I'll see all of you in the next one. Till then, bye.